Now let's take a little bit closer look at the Windows API. What the Windows API, or the Application Programming Interface, actually is it's just a large collection of functions that provide communication to and from the Windows operating system, between the Windows operating system and your program. So when we want the Windows operating system to do something, there's a function that the original Windows development team has exposed to us so that we can cause certain things to happen. Now here's the deal though. Windows as an operating system was originally developed in the C language. Now for that reason you'll still see a lot of C characteristics in there. And good example, talked about it somewhere else in the course earlier, you're going to see a lot of structs out there instead of classes. Alright, and it's just the way it is, so don't freak about it. Just use the structs and understand what they are. We talk about them in a video here in the course, and I think it's called Using a Struct. Okay, but anyway, just the simple size of the API makes it very challenging to learn. There's a lot of stuff out there, but for right now let's just talk about the 8 basic categories of the Windows API, and this is really where you should start with digging into understanding the Windows Application Programming Interface. First of all is base services. Now in the 32-bit version of the Windows operating system, these functions are out there in the kernel 32.dll file, and so that's what you're going to reference to get to these. But this provides access to the fundamental resources in the Windows operating systems, and we're talking about things like file systems, processes, error handling, threads, all that sort of thing. Next is advanced services, and this lives in the ADV API 32.dll file, and this is how we're going to communicate and read and write to the Windows registry and to Windows services. And then we have graphics device interface, and so you have DGI 32.dll. And this is how we get any functionality where we want to work with monitors, printers, and any other output devices. We're going to use functions in this particular DLL. Then the user interface is kind of categorized all separately into the user 32.dll file, and this is where we're able to build windows, buttons, scroll bars, all that sort of thing. The common dialog box library, the COMDLG 32DLL, this is what we're going to use to pass commands to Windows to open and save files, to work with colors, fonts, and really anything where you see a dialog box pop up and you've seen the color chooser, and to not the process of opening and saving the file, but the dialog box that lets us see the files and go out there and browse our disks and that sort of thing, all comes from the common dialog box. Now the common control library, not putting a DLL file out here because this thing is kind of out there in a number of different places, and things tend to move around on different versions of Windows and stuff in and out of the common control library. But generally this is where we're going to gain access to be able to manipulate things like status bars, progress bars, toolbars, those sorts of things. Then the Windows shell, which is shell 32DLL, gives us the original operating system shell, or more or less our direct command input into the operating system. And then last but certainly not least are network services, and this is all the networking aspects of the Windows operating system. So those are the 8 categories that if you want to kind of start digging into the Windows API, start looking at those, start looking at examples. They're all over the internet. There's some excellent books out there about working with the Windows API. So open up your C++, follow through some of their examples, and you can really get started pretty quickly. But again, this is going to be something that's going to have to take a little bit of persistence and staying with it and practicing to understand how to use, manipulate, and work with the Windows API.